Deutschland. We're going to Germany for our best.
Yay.
Let's go to Seth.
I'm going to make this quick. Dortmund, I think, had the best window for every fan of a club that's not Manchester United because they kept Jadon Sancho. They also signed Jude Bellingham, who was a player that Manchester United were also linked with. They also signed Thomas Meunier, who I think is someone who's been overlooked recently as like a very solid Champions League level right back. Dortmund have qualified for the Champions League again. I think they're looking maybe higher than second, but I mean, it's hard to ignore. I know all those things I just said about Dortmund are very nice and very kind, but Bayern Munich, after winning the treble, went out and got their man. Leroy Sané is finally part of the squad. He has already picked up a minor injury, which I would like to point out, but Leroy Sané is electric, and he's world class, and I don't think a lot of people can argue with that. Yes, they lost Thiago, but Thiago was going anyway. He was leaving anyway. What they did do is they signed depth in positions that I thought were very iffy, and if they were to get a major injury in one of those positions, I don't think they'd be able to recreate the success that they had last year. The depth that they signed is very interesting because they picked up Ligue 1 players in those positions, and a lot of people think that the Ligue 1 is this farmers league and that there's not a lot of quality beyond PSG, but they managed to pick up Eric Maxim Choupo-Moting, who has Bundesliga experience. That's an incredibly smart signing from Bayern Munich. He can play striker, he can play as a winger, he can play behind the striker. Then you go out and get Bonassar, and Bonassar is a converted right back, was a winger for most of his career. But the way that Bayern possessed the ball, you basically want a winger at fullback. So that was, I think, also a very smart signing from them. And then you see them let go of some of the problems. They let go of Mikel Cuisance, who is an undoubtedly talented player, but someone who is just a little bit off.
Awful.
I was going to say he's off the attitude rails right now. And I think he needs to get a move away from a massive club and just find himself again. But I think Bayern Munich are going to win the title again. I think they're going to be strong in the Champions League again. I'm not going to understate the importance of Thiago Alcantara, but the rest of that team is frankly ridiculous. I mean,
give me 1 second. My computer's going to die.
I mean, Alphonso Davies is incredible. There's other young players in that team who are just excellent. And Nicolas Sula was out for most of last season, and they still were unbelievable. And we know how good Nicolas Sula can be. So that's basically like a new signing. I mean, he's coming back, hopefully stronger than ever. He's a brilliant player, and I think he'll really fill the shoes of Boateng's pretty decent season that he had last year. And I think Alaba will continue to be excellent. Neuer doesn't show any signs of regressing, really. But, yeah, I would say my choice for best would be Bayern Munich. But I think really the one that needs to be talked about is worst window in the Bundesliga, because it's embarrassing, honestly. Similar to the situation in Spain with Valencia. It's really just like a catastrophic sort of event going on. I don't know if Nick, you want to talk about the team. Oh, okay. Sorry, I'll let you go for best.
You took two teams as your best.
So I mean, I agree that Bayern have actually done some really good moves, but I think I'm not sure, how healthy the all their decisions are. I don't know, in terms of particularly with the midfield. I think they didn't really replace Thiago. They got one of their long-term targets in Roca, and he's great. But again, it's not gonna replace Thiago. So I think that was kind of the thing, because Hansi Flick wanted to keep him, they just couldn't. And one of the things that I'm not sure about is how they set the team up. One of the things that Pep Guardiola talked about was when he won everything, right, in his first season as Barcelona manager, right? The turnaround is so hard after you've done that. How do you pick the team up and where do you go? And I think there's the question for Bayern is where are they going to go? So there's that to contend with. I think that, they've signed some pretty good players, but I think there are still like clear problem areas in the squad that are probably going to get exploited in the latter stages of the Champions League. The high line for one, the fact that like they need to play Alaba and Zula as the center back pairing. But they still keep having to play Boateng because of his passing range, but Boateng does not have the pace to play that high line anymore. So there's that. The fact that they can't tie Alaba down because apparently they have some financial issues, and I think that that's probably just tied to the pandemic. But the fact that they can't like tie him down is kind of huge, because Alaba for me at least last season was one of the top 4 or 5 center backs in the world. He's incredibly smart in the way that he plays because he's played all of those positions: left back, center mids, center back. So he knows how all those players around him are going to think. So there's that. So they're just little things that you have to that I would keep my eye on. So that just those things. But for me, I have to say that my number one for this window, it's kind of tough because of the outgoings, but some of the incomings I really like with Leverkusen. So obviously the big story with Leverkusen is they sold Kai Havertz. But apparently, as I've been reading into that deal, the talks for that were kept kind of really quiet, but they've been going on throughout the entirety of last season. So it was something that was on Leverkusen's mind, and they've kind of brought Florian Wirtz in towards the tail end of last season and gave him minutes. He got his first Bundesliga goal. He's now officially the youngest Bundesliga goal scorer. I would keep my eye on Wirtz, just because they didn't sign anyone to like knock him out. So I think he's going to develop well. But the incomings I really like. I love Patrick Schick coming in. I think, like we were talking about, like you can't, if you're Roma, you can't let him go, and you certainly can't let him go to a side that definitely needs he's going to be a perfect fit for. So I'm a big fan of that, and I really like Santiago Arias coming in. Like, he's not a fantastic right back, but I mean, when that team can never settle on a single right back, I think Arias will probably play within that gung-ho attacking style that we've seen under Bosch, like just a little bit better than somebody like Weiser or one of the Bender twins. Typically it's Lars down on the right side. And then also Hertha Berlin had a great little window. Bringing in Guendouzi on loan, that's pretty good. The fact that he's, like, for me, is one of the premier central midfield talents, like all around. And I think that they've just got a tidy little squad together now, Hertha Berlin, like with Mateus Cunha. Like, there's a lot of nice pieces there that I think long term are really gonna pay dividends. I mean, you've still got Piontek, they brought in Jean Cordoba, which I thought was funny, from Köln for quite a high fee. It's somewhere in the region of like $17 million or something like that. But I think they could, I mean, like, they're just little things that they did, particularly with the Guendouzi thing. And then, so I think that Hertha are going to challenge in the top half of the table. They looked pretty good against Bayern. It took 4 goals from Leva to really sink them. So I'm kind of a fan of what they're doing. And I think that it's just a lot of the teams around the Bundesliga don't have the funds to spend, because so much of their revenue comes from match day revenue. But I think a lot of them made some really tidy little moves like that. Like, when you look at like something like Cordoba, like, he's not a phenomenal striker, but he's just something different than what they have. So yeah, and again, like, obviously, like, I like what RB Leipzig did to try and replace Timo Werner. They didn't go all out for one big striker. They went for kind of like a bunch of little, like, different players. So they got Hwang Hee-chan, who, I mean, like, I was saying to Seth like a couple of months ago, like, I mean, that guy is built like a tank. And they brought in Sorloth. So like they've got two great little strikers that'll contribute. So rather than going for like a 30-goal season striker, they brought in a couple of guys who will get 10 to 15 goals. And Paulson will go on, and obviously Kluivert. So and Benny Henrich's going to Leipzig as well. So I mean, I don't think there's a clear winner, but there have been so many like good moves that a lot of these sides made that just make you excited to watch them.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I would just say that Santiago Arias for Leverkusen is probably going to be more of a January signing because he basically like split his leg in half playing for Colombia a few days ago.
Love it.
For him. He had it was like
Jesus.
one of the worst ankle injuries I've ever seen.
Yeah.
So that'll probably be more like a January signing. But you're right. I mean, that's a great signing. That's a huge coup for Bayer Leverkusen, honestly. But yeah, Rob.
No, I don't really have a best, so we're just gonna move on to worst.
Good idea. Because we all have a worst in mind.
We're all in agreement on this, right? Like, let's clarify. Jeez Louise. All right, let's get it over with. Rob, you want to start us off?
Seth, you can take it away.
I'm wearing their colors in mourning, basically. Schalke are a mess. FC Schalke are a mess. They basically are one of the most confusing teams that I've ever seen. 2 seasons ago, they had a combination of players in their attack that was Daniel Caligiuri, Bergstaller, and a few others, and they were actually kind of fun to watch. And it was like everything seemed to be going okay. This was like the 17-18 season.
Tedesco season.
Yeah, the Tedesco season. And now it seems like everything is falling apart. Caligiuri is no longer a Schalke player. Weston McKennie is no longer a Schalke player. They had brought in Mark Uth for the 18-19 season, I believe. That didn't work out. He's now a Cologne player, I believe. Then I can't even remember who they signed for their striking option.
Paciencia, who I like.
Paciencia from Frankfurt.
Ibišević, who's apparently not taking really any wages.
And I was just about to say, Vedat Ibišević, who is one of the highest foreign goal scorers in Bundesliga history, but he's also like 35.
Yeah.
And it doesn't really make sense because they also had sent their veteran goalkeeper, Ralph Farman, on loan to some absolutely random team last year. He's now the starter because they sold Nubel to Bayern Munich. So they're on a free. Their young goalkeeper talent is now back replaced by their much, 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 much older goalkeeper. And their veteran leader, right wing back, right wing, right back, super versatile Daniel Caligiuri is now also gone after having a terrible season last year. So Schalke are a complete mess, and I'm really sad to see them get to this point, but it's been coming for a lot of years now. They're not the Champions League club playing against Real Madrid that they were, 5 or 6 years ago. So
I think they're set to go down. Yeah, like they're definitely. I feel like they kind of set like. A lot of it comes down to the fact that they just don't have any money, and so they were desperate to raise funds this summer, like absolutely desperate. And so they were trying to offload McKennie to absolutely everybody. And in the end, they only let him go on loan. With I believe there's an option to buy on that, but I mean, again, like it's just one of those things where the club is falling apart, and a lot of it just comes down to the fact that a lot of it is pandemic stuff. With losing so much revenue, but I mean, like it's a poorly run club anyway. So like you said, like they let go of Nubel, but they also let go of the next one in line, which would have been Markus Schubert. So they let him go on loan to Frankfurt, and so then but it was like kind of like a two-way thing because they brought in Rono from Frankfurt. So like, there's really no clear plan here. It's just watching the squad like slowly fall apart, and it is sad because I mean you can't really hate on Schalke as an outsider. They've always kind of been just like a fun side to watch because of the young players who come through and everything. But yeah, it's completely fallen off the rails, And the one asset that they have, right, that they could have got rid of and raised some serious money for was Ozan Kabak. And they didn't because they just wanted to be able to like last in the Bundesliga. But they've already sacked David Wagner after what was a dismantling by Bayern on opening day, which everybody saw coming. But like, you know, the subsequent results have shown that it wasn't like just because Bayern are great, it was because Schalke are awful. So I don't know what the plan is going forward. I don't think they know.
Nick,
So-
they still have Suat Serdar as well, and
Oh,
they
yeah,
still
yeah.
have they still have Amin Harit as well. Who
Yeah. So I mean, so those are three assets, right? Like those are like good players. Now, what the smart decision is, I don't know. Do you keep him or sell? I think you sell Kabak. I think you want to keep hold of Serdar because there isn't going to be anybody who's really in for him. It's not going to be much of a bidding war. Whereas like there are teams that are interested in Kabak, and I like Harit, just like as a little technician. I remember Atalanta were sniffing around at him earlier in the window. Would have loved to see him there, honestly. It would have been really exciting. But I would love anybody in that system. So yeah, it's just sad because there's no direction. So I don't know.
It's crazy to think that in 2017, 2018, they were runners-up in the Bundesliga. Now they're going to be relegated. Just like that shows how fast they can just all go.
It shows the turnover in the Bundesliga and why the people, when you don't pay attention to it, you miss so much that like it's so much crazy stuff that happens. So yeah, I mean, sad, but it was coming.
All right. Do we have anybody else have anything on worst, or we're just all in agreement that they have probably one of the worst transfer windows in a long time? We've had two really bad transfer windows this season in regards to like the whole world.
Yeah.
All right. Now we move on to Ligue 1.